Okay, so we're going to do say it in a deep voice.
The grand review.
The grand review of Taaseh and Heasui. So all the Gemaras that we covered. Okay, and let's see if we can get like a general theme that emerges from this. Something more sophisticated than simply that Succah is something abstract. All right. What was the first case we did?
Something.
The vine case. Okay, the Geffen case. All right. So what's the case?
He puts the vine over the sukkah while it's still connected to the ground.
Right. Okay. So we know if it's mechubar, you can't use it. That's a psul, right? So now, how do you solve that problem? So Rav said what?
Just cut it.
And Shmuel says not enough just to cut it.
You have to do nanu.
Nanu also. Okay. So what was the svara? It's gonna be quicker than I thought. What's the svara?
Of Rob, that is?
Of both.
Rav is already doing.
So good. Saying very good. Okay. So Rav. So the machlokas. Originally we said the machlokas in Rav and Shmuel it has to do with the nature of the binyan. So Rav looks at the schach as being schach puzzle. So I have to just the Taaseh, the Maaseh is simply to remove the shem psul. The psul exists in it. The material of the geffen, there's nothing wrong with it. It just simply right now it's attached to the ground, so it can't function as schach. So it's puzzle, schach puzzle, right? Whereas according to Shmuel, it was never schach to begin with. It's as long as it's mechubar, it's nothing. Once I cut it, what have I done? So now I've brought it into the arena of being kasher schach. What's it lacking? Taaseh. Right, and Taaseh is what? Taaseh is a binyan. It's a type of binyan. You have to do an action that demonstrates binyan, not boneh. You don't have to build it, but you have to do an action that reflects binyan. So that's how you remove the shem asay. Okay, that's the Taaseh. The Taaseh is by doing this, it's kisoser. Okay, all right. So let me just say the question on tape. Okay, so the question is like this. The question is that in the case of Geffen. So Rav holds cutting is sufficient, and Shmuel holds nanea is what's required. Cutting is not enough; you have to do nanea also. All right. Now we know in the Gemara on Yudalid by the introduction of Tikra, so we know that Rav learns that the machlokas of Meir and Yehuda is whether or not there's Xeris Tikra. Whereas according to Shmuel, he says no, Meir and Yehuda have to agree with Xeris Tikra. It's just a question of how expansive is the Xera, right? So the question you have to ask is, well, does that follow the reasoning of Rav by Geffen? Does that follow the case of Xeris Tikra? And does Shmuel's reasoning by Mananea follow to Xeris Tikra? Meaning that Rav can tolerate a position that says there's no such thing as Xeris Tikra, but Shmuel can't because he holds Mananea. How do you link the two? How do you link Mananea to the Tikra example? Let's go back and do the Tzitzis question real quickly. The Tzitzis question is like this. The Gemara says, I'm just going to tell you the facts outside. All right. Rav holds what? Rav holds that tzisasan, when I cut the vine, that is considered like Taaseh, right? And therefore I don't have to worry about it. Okay. Now there's a similar mitzvah like that has a Taaseh v'lmana asui component to it, which is tzitzis. Okay. Tzitzis, there's a mitzvah asiyas tzitzis. You have to make them. Okay. You have to make the tzitzis. Okay. So there's a case the Gemara brings down, and in that case it says, and Yud Alpha and Off, in the case it says that there was this guy who used his wife's coat to make tzitzis, right? But what happened? Basically, it turned out that he ran the strings, he looped the strings around, right?
Two corners or one?
One. Let's do the one corner case. One corner case, loops it around. Then what does he do at the end? Then he does the knots.
He ties it, then he goes.
And then he cuts it. Okay. So that what is that? So that's what?
Okay.
No, what did you say?
Menasai.
Yeah, that's minasoi. So now the problem is that the tzitzis already had the shame, similar to the Geffen case. The tzitzis have a psul in them right now. So Rav would say, cut them, you're fine. Right? Okay. The question is, what does Shmuel do with that case?
Is he not brought down?
Yeah, there's like tzitzis with a psul. Same thing as putting the Geffen over the sukkah.
So he would.
No, the Gemara tells you.
I think Shmuel would agree.
What do you do with that case? So the Gemara says, so you can't learn the case. According to Shmuel, it can't be a case of I made the knots and then cut it, because that'd be what? According to Shmuel, asoi. And it can't be a case where I
made it,
I cut it and then made the knots, because that's mutter. There's nothing wrong with that. So what's the case?
Wait, I understand. Why can't it be number two?
Wait, why can't it be Asui?
Okay, listen to what Gemara says.
You said why can't number two?
He says it's not a case where he tied it and then cut it, because that can't be. So maybe the case is that he cut it and then tied it.
I don't know. How can you say that?
Well, what's the problem with saying that? Of course, it's pshita.
There's certain order senses have, and you can't say, well, since it's read in this order, maybe you went to the opposite. You can't.
No, forget that. No, the Gemara has a better question. The Gemara is saying that it can't be a problem. How could it ever be a problem that I went ahead, cut it, had separate strings and then tied it? That's the worst. That's the way you're supposed to do it. So what do you mean? How can it be Shmuel to have a problem with that?
Of
course. No, so the Gemara says, what would you have thought? No, so really the case is like this. Really the case is a case of posek v'achar kosher.
So obviously,
it is a case of cut. Just listen. Mahu, the same law, because you might have thought, okay, the Gemara is understanding your question. The Gemara says, what would you have thought? You would have thought, ba'inan kanaf b'shas p'sil v'leka kamash malan. So what would you think? You would think that you need, again, literally, okay? It means, Rashi says, ba'inan kanaf b'shas p'sil b'shas sheposlo shetolabo p'silim, at the time that you draw the strings through, okay? Ba'inan kanaf echad v'lo shnayim. So you need to have at least, it has to be done per kanaf and not per two kanafayim. Because I forgot one fact. It's not a big missing fact, okay? The Gemara says it's another case, okay? The case is where I loop it through two corners, okay? Two corners, right? Here and here, right? In fact, look at the case, which ArtScroll view a picture of. So you have your Beget Tzitzis, and the guy runs the strings through two corners, okay? So what would you have thought? So he can't learn that you tie it and then you cut it. That can't be, because that's Taaseh and Heasui. But so the Gemara says, no, he must learn that I cut it and then tied it. For 1 second, how can you? That's pasha. That's how you make tzitzis. Oh no, because maybe you'll think I gotta do one corner at a time. So maybe you'll think that because what did he do in this case? What does he do here? He ties. Sorry, he loops it through both and then cuts it and then ties it. But maybe that's a problem. Maybe already the fact he looped it through both is a problem, right? So Kamashwan, no, it's not a problem. So what's a Havin and Maskana? How do you look at Asui? Okay, how can Asui emerge? There's two ways Asui can emerge. Right, so one way this asay can emerge is when?
When it's made or you're making it.
No, Yaakov, say what you said again. When does asay emerge? Either it emerges
the entire time.
Okay, meaning the beginning of the process,
right?
Right. So when I start to construct the tzitzis,
right,
even though there's no what? There's no halachic reality in tzitzis yet.
That's my question.
But I started the construction because it's hakshar. It's a hakshar the mitzvah. I've started when you can start constructing something. There's a hakshar the mitzvah. So I'm starting the construction process
of it.
What does that mean, preparation for the mitzvah. So I'm starting to make the mitzvah. So there's a reality to it, but the mitzvah itself doesn't exist. The chesed doesn't exist. Kamash Malon, no. What do you need? The actual chaloshim. You need the actual thing itself, the actual halachic thing for it to be a problem of asay.
So it's how I mean is this is a class about you. Was it chesed mitzvah? To say it again, if you start prepping.
Question is the starting of the process?
I get the question. Is defined. I don't understand how many even ever work. You're saying
can the identity of asay attach itself even though there's no halachic reality to the thing? So the Hami is saying maybe you think that. Maybe you say the fact I'm starting to make the tzitzis, even though there's no tzitzis in front of me, but I started the process. Also, can attach itself to that, so therefore it will be a problem of kosher achar psika. Or you say no. You say that it's only when it's actually tzitzis that the issue of also can ever emerge.
What's kosher achar psika?
What was the next Gemara we did? Chavilei kash. So tell me what was the case about Chavilei kash?
Chavilei kash. He found up bundles of weed thrown on top.
Not weeds, because you can't use weed as chash.
Straw
or
top
wood
of a thing.
Of a structure, a hut, right? And what's the purpose? To dry out. All right. So what's the Gemara? So what's the issue? What's the main issue?
Mikey.
Does Nimlach work?
Right. So what happens? So he goes ahead and he puts the schach up. Puts the chavilei. Where are you going? Right. He puts the chavilei kash up on top of the sukkah, right? And to liyavesh, to dry, right? Now the Gemara has a question. Maybe you'll think what? Maybe you'll think that he could just sit there and say to himself, "Oh." It's no longer liyavesh now it's for schach, and you would think that would be sufficient. Kamash on the no. What does he have to do?
Yes, the nimla. It's heter.
Match the bundles, right? Cut the bundles. Right? So what was the Hamin Maskana there? What's the second idea of Taaseh and Asur that we learned? The first idea is the idea of binyan, right? Second idea is what?
Do you have a Hamin?
So the first step is that there's an idea that's called shem schach. Not the material itself. There's nothing wrong with the chavilei kash. It's not like the case of the geffen where it's attached to the ground. This straw is perfectly mutter to use as schach. But what's it lacking? Shem schach. Okay? Now how is the shem schach expressed? Like what? Now remember what we said? You remember this? There's the shem schach, and what was the Havmina saying? when I put the Chavile Kash on top, I did a Taaseh, I did a Maisa Binyan.
Right.
You can't say that.
Shem Yavish.
Oh, but right, but now, we'll be careful. In other words, it's certainly Schach.
Oh, but
it's just that right now its function is what?
Yavish.
Oh, so conceptually, so I can redesignate its conceptual function. I can say it's no longer Yavish, now it's Tseil.
Right.
So what was the Chiddush in the Gemara? There's a big Chiddush.
Well, because it appears to be Yavish.
More than that.
Well, that Matir works.
So it's not
Why? No, forget
separate
Matir yet.
function.
Oh, right. So in other words, that its function is tied into the very identity of the Schach. Schach has one function, and what's that? Tseil. Tseil. In other words, it is a. What's a raya, by the way? I'm just saying, as a. What's the halacha we require by?
Is you saying only by here is that true, or in general a function?
No, that is it.
Right,
That is it. You guys did. You go on. You guys did this in Mikvah. No. Salsa meruba mechamasa. There's a whole institute because sale's so important. The very idea of schach functioning is based on how much shade it gives, right? The Gemara says how much shade versus how much sun. Why shade? Because that is the primary function of the schach. So built into its identity is l'shem sale. So when I go ahead and make it l'shem yavesh, the shade schach is never.
Right.
Manifest.
Is that what they make Xeris?
Yeah. So what was the svar there? The second idea of Taaseh and also is that if it's not l'shem sale, okay, meaning that the shem schach is never manifest in the very binyan of the structure, right? When I put the schach on top, I didn't put schach on top. I put a bundle of wood or whatever straw. Right, that is being used liyavesh. So the shem schach was never able to be manifest.
Right.
So therefore, the only solution would be to do some action that makes a nicker that I've broken my relationship to the process of yavesh. That's why matir works. It's not binyan. Untying it is not an act of binyan. Because if it were an act of binyan, what would you have to do? You have to take all of them off. No.
It's dismissal.
No,
exactly.
Say it again. It was binyan to take all them off.
I have to take all of them off.
The mice
but it's a taaseh.
Right.
Okay, it's
no,
taaseh.
it's removing also. But
Yaakov's right. Of all these three, this is the most abstract one.
and therefore the most cool.
Okay? Well, okay, fine. It's the most abstract one. Because this one, at least, you're doing something. You have, what do you call it? Matir. Right? But I'm saying you can see through function. But this, what do you like Tikra? So you look at the thing and what? So let's go over the facts again. So you have a Machlokes, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir. Right?
Hello.
Okay, so let's slowly. In Rav's version of the Machlokes, so one side holds there is Xeris Tikra and one side holds not Xeris Tikra. So what was that Machlokes? What do we say there?
Who holds? There's rules.
Don't worry right now. The initial way of learning the Machlokes, the initial way was one side holds there is Xeris Tikra and one side holds is not Xeris Tikra. So what was that?
Right.
That's what.
But don't worry about Rav for now. Version A. Right, but what's the idea of Xeris Tikra? That's the real focus here. What's Xeris Tikra? What's the problem?
Right.
And that's related to your
roof
in a keva way.
So we said philosophical halacha. No, so we said this. We said that when it comes to the Tikra, so what we said was that what's the problem? So Rameir says, not before Rameir. We know that, remember that the Rashi on Chesam Abayis. We know there's a problem when a person lives in his house, right? So what happens? It's a good, interesting point, Ari. When a person lives in your house, you can never use your house as a sukkah.
Right.
Even though the house itself can have all the kosher components of a sukkah.
But okay? People do that thing in like the room with the...
No, they don't live in it though. They have a hut outside. So what do? They take the hut, right? They don't live in there during the year, right? And then they take the schach up and put it back down again.
Right.
But let's say my house, you can't make your house into a sukkah.
I see people do it all the time.
Who?
I don't know, these like really...
Living in a makom makes it a diras keva. If I live there, just living there changes the very identity of the structure. Even though the structure materially has what?
Even if it's made out of seaweed.
Even if it's made out of seaweed. Right. It doesn't matter what it's made out of, as long as it's how I live in there determines the nature of the structure. So if I live, it's an amazing idea. So if I live in a house, even though the house has all the components of sukkah, it can never be defined as sukkah because it's keva. It's permanent. Okay, keva means it's fixed. Okay, and what I have to have on sukkahs? Dira sarai. So Rameir is a big chiddush. Rameir wants to say halacha comes along. This is the key point. Halacha comes along and differentiates between. Halacha says that if I live in a makom a certain way, halacha comes along. Right, it was like halacha comes along and says that the way I live in a makom determines its identity. Right, but Rameir comes along and says there's another way that even though halacha says it that way, people as well relate to it differently. What do people say? I won't say differently, but there's another way that this this differentiation of keva and arai can emerge, and that's through the material. What material is used to build it? So when you see the tikra, which is the roof beam, what's a person going to say? He's going to say, "Oh look, I have
house roof
kvias in my arai." That's the problem. So according to, it's an unbelievable idea according to Rameir. He's saying you cannot introduce any reality of kvias in my makam arai.
So if that was really true, her roof beams is house roof.
Right, because it's not that right. Because it's not that I physically have the roof beams. Because then you're right. Then I have to get rid of all of them. It's an abstract problem. So therefore, you have an abstract solution. Meaning what? Meaning that I just have to break the reality of roof. So when it's no longer homogeneous, then in my reality, it's not a roof anymore. Because my roof is just roof beams.
Right. Would you say someone's extra frozen?
But that was the machlokas according to Rav. Now Shmuel says no. Shmuel says the machlokas, and this is the most abstract step. Shmuel says no. They both agree with Xeris Tekra, but Rameir extends it to even what?
Material.
No, this far yet. Factually,
You know what not bad means?
to smaller beams,
Yeah.
smaller width beams. All right. So what's that? What's the svar there?
By what?
In Shmuel's version, right? They both agree Xeris Tekra. Both Rameir and Yehuda agree Xeris Tekra. The question is, does it extend to smaller width beams? So what's the svar there? One side holds what, and one side holds what?
No,
You said this already.
No, is that not so long ago? What is Xeris Tekra?
Using the basketball shoe analogy,
Oh.
let's say NBA players. You like this?
Oh.
Let's say NBA players only wear size 13 basketball shoes. Okay, and you go to the sneaker store to buy basketball shoes. Now let's assume for now to make the case good, basketball shoes have a certain shape to them. They have the high top.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay, so now there's two logical possibilities. Okay, either you're going to tell me that the only shoe that's a basketball shoe are the shoes that basketball players wear, and every other kind of shoe is not a basketball shoe. Even if it looks like one, it's not a basketball shoe. Only the size 13 is a basketball shoe because that's what basketball players wear.
Yeah.
The other possibility is that no. What's the other possibility?
All basketball players have 13 size feet.
No, it's size 13. That's the assumption, correct.
Oh, yeah.
Meaning that just because it's true that basketball players, or let's say the best ones, right, are the ones who use size 13 shoes, but that doesn't mean the other shoes aren't basketball shoes, right? They're all basketball shoes. They have the material basketball shoes. They look like basketball shoes. They function like that way. It just happens to be that the ones that are most often used by basketball players are size 13.
But then you say always?
I'd say the ones that the NBA players use. So they're the ones who are the majority basketball players.
Again, to clarify, to clarify.
The last thing the Gemara takes up in Tesvav is the last point, is that you have the issue of Betulei Tikra. So if you learn the Gemara like Shmuel, I'm going to say this fast, I apologize if you don't understand it, but if you learn the Gemara like Shmuel, Mishnah, and then further the Gemara like Shmuel, so therefore Rabbi Yehuda and Rameir both agree there's a Xeris Tikra. So the question is, how could Beis Hillel hold Mefaf cake works? Right? So the Gemara gives an answer. The Gemara says, it depends what the case is. Is it that I built a sukkah with the tikra? Or is it that the sukkah the hut was there, and I simply just put, the hut was there with the tikra on top of it? Okay? So if the tikra is on top of it, so Beis Hillel would hold mefafkek is sufficient, and Beis Shammai would say no. So before we answer that side, let's just take the first side. So the first side, what do we say? They both agree that I can't build it with the tikra. Why?
Right.
Why?
Well, because
Function determines Hefza.
You can't say I'm going to build my arai sukkah with kvias in it. That's absurd, right? That's absurd. Since this thing is related back to kvias, that'd be the problem. Whereas what does the other side say? So that's where the diversion of machlokas. So Beis Shammai holds it's separate gzera. But Beis Hillel has this funny thing where he wants to include it as Taaseh and Asla. He says no. Since the problem here is, well, he doesn't say that. He says, if I go ahead and I'm mifak fake and I do this thing, I do nanua, so now what's happened? So now I've demonstrated, because this does suffer from asui, right? Because it was there all along.
Also equals keva, which equals...
Hold on. So I've demonstrated that I'm aware that the Torah holds I can't use something that's asui. So because I'm aware of that, so now there's no idea of Xeris Tikra that'll emerge anymore. So what's he saying? Obviously, the obvious thing he's saying is that
Keva's
there's one idea. What?
Keva's all in the mind, that's what you're saying.
Kev, what do you mean? When I'm mifak cake, right? When I do that and I knew a thing, so mifak fake. So when I do that, so now what have I done? So I've done an action that does what? Again, in Taaseh, I've done a Taaseh. I've now done something that demonstrates what? That this is now my Dior Sarai. So he's saying, if I relate to it that way, then there's no reality of Keva at all.
Keva's gone too.
Right, Keva goes with it. There's no reality of Keva. So it's an amazing idea. So he holds that's the third category of Taaseh and Asui. It's Keva. It's that if the thing has the shame Keva to it, it's considered Asui.